Welcome to This Song Is Yours, the podcast where we dive deep into the art of songwriting, chat with some of the most exciting artists in the world, and explore the stories behind their songs. I'm your host, Simon Fink, and as always, thank you very much for joining us. Our guest this week is Matt Berninger. Best known as the frontman and lyrical voice of The National, Matt has spent the better part of 2 decades helping craft one of the most celebrated catalogues in modern indie rock. From the brooding intimacy of Boxer through to the epic scope of Sleep Well Beast, which earned the band their first Grammy Award. His baritone voice and deeply literary songwriting have made him one of the most distinctive and revered figures of his generation. This month, Matt is bringing his solo project to Australia for the very first time, touring behind his second solo album, Get Sunk, in what is shaping up to be some of the most highly anticipated shows of the year. For fans who have followed his work closely, the chance to see Matt in such an intimate solo setting is something pretty special. In today's episode, we're getting into all of it. We chat about what separates Matt's solo shows from a night with The National, from the feel to the set list to the energy, and what it's like stepping out on his own in that way. We dig into the making of Get Sunk and the creative headspace behind it, and we also go back to the beginning, exploring how one of this generation's finest indie songwriters first found his way into writing songs. Now, we want to say a massive thank you to Ali for her help with today's episode and remind everyone that Matt Berninger is touring Australia later this month with appearances at Revered Live, Open Season, and shows in Melbourne and Auckland. You'll find links in today's show notes on where you can grab tickets and keep up to date with everything that Matt has going on. Now, while you are in the show notes, please make sure you subscribe to This Song Is Yours and go and follow us on Instagram and TikTok. We would really love it if you did. It does help us out and it keeps you up to date with all new episodes, guests, and everything else that we've got going on. We've got some exciting things coming later this month, so please keep your eyes peeled for that. But let's not keep you any further. Here is our conversation with Matt Berninger.
She's so strange. No one can tell what the difference is between spine.
Please welcome to This Song Is Yours, Matt Berninger. Matt, hello, sir. How are we? Welcome to the podcast.
Hello to you, sir. Thank you for having me.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for giving us some of your time ahead of a pretty exciting time for fans of yourself. You are coming back down to Australia later this month in May for some very exciting shows. We've got the first solo shows from yourself. You've been here many a time with The National, but this is the first time we've got some Matt solo shows. How are we feeling about a solo return, I guess?
Well, doing the solo stuff. Well, I mean, I'm coming down there with just a guitar player and a piano player. Julia Laws played piano and she'll sing, and Sean O'Brien, who produced, who I've been working with forever, and I wrote a lot of the songs with Sean and these guys and Julia, and so. So sometimes I do it as a trio, which is really nice. Been doing these really cool, like a lot of churches and a lot of really special venues, but also, I've been doing 2 versions of the solo touring with a full band, which is the whole band I made the record with, Get Sunk with, and I've been kind of working with this band, since the pandemic, and even did some TV stuff with this band and everything. So. We've been together for a while, this solo band of my, Sean and Sterling and Julia and Garrett. But but this time in Australia it'll just be Julia and Sean and I. It's the venues have been really fun, and the types of shows, the national shows, are. I miss those and I love those. And those are, I would say, kind of a bigger production. They're longer and a big thing. But doing this solo thing, I've been able to, I don't know, kind of connect with audiences in a different way, because I can see the whites of people's eyes and not having to kind of go to a lot of the places, with national stuff. I get to, I kind of get to be a little bit different version of myself, I think, as a performer on stage, So 20 years of all the national stuff, and which is I love going to and being that guy, but I get to be somebody different, in the solo thing, and so that feels different.
100%. I imagine that having the solo show and having this kind of what's the lack of a better term, like this outfit for delivery, it almost allows you to play around with the persona that people might think that they have in their mind of you, and whether that's the pacing, whether that's the set list, the stage presence. I imagine that it must be a little bit more freeing having that kind of thing to play around with.
I think it's like, I mean, I'm not trying to with the solo stuff, or even I'm working on an Elvi record right now too, and I don't ever really go into it with like trying to be a different person, but the chemistry of that, of whatever the relationship with the musicians and with, you know, with Elvi, with Brent Knopf, or with all these guys and the solo stuff, is just a different chemistry, obviously, and I think I do write, you know, maybe I write differently, just because of the nature of who you're working with. Maybe that's hard to tell, but definitely, you know, going out and doing I mean, like, to put it, you know, I mean, I do national songs and solo stuff, but you know, I kind of select the ones where I know I'm going to have, it's going to fit well in the energy. But the national things can be a roller coaster ride. I mean, it's just a different ride, right? It's like, I love the national roller coaster ride, but after, you know, you do that for when a record comes out, and we did, you know, for a couple of years, 2.5 years of touring on and off. Great. I think it was the best the National has ever been, and kind of the healthiest the band has ever been, and the whole crew and everything. But still, we all need like some space from that. When I started coming out of that with the last two national records, I just felt so reconnected to the process and how frustrating trying to write songs is, and all of it. I was just so happy to reconnect with it, and so I've been not manically writing, but I've been writing a lot. And making a lot of art, and so I've really feel grateful that spark, that flame is back, and so I keep fanning it and keep really just keeping it, you know, tending to that creative fire, in making sure that I'm, you know, don't let it burn down the house, but also, you know, keep it toasty and keep it going. Because when I let it go out, you know, during the pandemic, and almost like wanted it to go out, that was, yeah, it got to continue the metaphor. It was like, that was a dark, cold time without that creative fire at all, you know, without not having any of the desire to even make art, you know. That was a strange time. And so now that I have it, I'm just like, I just keep doing stuff, and it's really working. You know, I'm a very happy artist right now.
I absolutely love to hear that. These shows are in support of the brilliant Get Sunk album that came out last year. Firstly, congratulations on that beautiful record. I think that a number of fans were really excited to see, I think, almost playing around with like maybe a little bit of a different perspective. And there's some sonic choices that are similar to the National and some that are very different as well. I'm wondering, almost a year on, by the time that this episode does come out, how has your reaction, or what's the feeling now that 12 months has passed from it coming out and people having their own reaction to Get Sunk?
I mean, I kind of am, you know, when I'm working on things out without the guys in the National, I mean, it would be impossible for me to try to even mimic the National. So I don't really work that hard to avoid it. I mean, the way the Desners and the Devendorfs and with our horns, everything, the chemistry of that, it took years to evolve. It just gets to an interesting place. And so that organism, the National, the creative mixture of those people, is on its own trip. It can't be mimicked. You know, it just has to go its own way. And so that's what happens when a band starts finding chemistry. Like you so this other band, you know, this group with Sean and Julia and Sterling and Garrett, you know, has we've been writing together for a while. So I think we're just starting to really find our chemistry, you know, and especially as a live band. So this kind of feels like what it felt like when the National was, you know, making Alligator or Boxer or something like that, or you know, that we're still kind of like we're still in that weird early, bubbly phase of the Chemicals, with that band. And then I would say, with Brent, it's a whole different thing. We were friends for a long time, and that first Elvi record took a long time to kind of, pull together between other projects. And that was like 11 years ago. And in these 11 years, we've exchanged lots of little bubbly ideas, and he's a very different kind of artist and a very different kind of songwriter and musician, and it's just always so different. And that's even I feel like the Elvi record is a huge leap forward for Elvi, right? But I don't really put the projects up and kind of weigh them next to each other, or even compare them, really,
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I do find myself also writing lyrics that I'll move them from this to that and all over the place, and like so all of them, all the projects are all kind of, and I've been working on a lot of national stuff for a while now, and so it's like all these different, very different kind of meals are being cooked in these different, kitchens, but like I'm still the same guy kind of running around in all of it, but so it just organically takes on its own kind of shape, and I'm not trying to shape it to avoid anything or to mimic anything, one way or another. I'm just trying to, like, when a song, like, oh yeah, that song's starting to float, that's all I'm looking for, trying to catch 10 or so songs or so that float, and then you got a record,
100%. We are, if you couldn't tell already, like primarily a songwriting podcast. I was wondering whether you might share, going back to your introduction to songwriting, I guess what got you interested, regardless of the vehicle that's being drived in, what got you into songwriting? What was that thing that kind of initially like sparked that interest in creating lyrics and music?
Yeah, well, I mean, I took piano when I was younger, but I was a visual artist, like all through. Like I gave up on piano, and I never learned to play the guitar, and never learned to play the piano very well. And I really focused on visual arts, and it wasn't until I went into pre-med for college. Then I switched to sculpture, and then I switched to graphic design, and went to University of Cincinnati, where I met Scott Devendorf and Mike Brewer and Casey Reese, and we made a band called Nancy. And the reason I got it to be in it is just because I was older than some of them. Mike was older too, but they were, we were obsessed with guided by voices, and I was just a huge music nut. And then I met these dudes who, one of them played drums, the other two guys could play guitar, and it was like, they're like, do you want to try, and Mike sang half the songs and I sang the other ones, and it was one of those things, like I lucked into it, and I got hooked. And so in that band, we wrote lots of silly, we recorded most of our songs just at parties where our friends, hanging a microphone off of a ceiling fan or something. And it was fun. I mean, I think we went back and looked at, and we've got like 150 recordings. I won't say we have 150 songs by any stretch, but we have a lot of recordings. And so when I moved to New York and then got into graphic design, I really, that band sort of dissolved, but then Aaron and Brian and Scott and the National kind of formed slowly at the same time that that band Nancy was kind of dissolving. So but I was just my sister got me into cool music, and I was just a huge music fan, and so the fact that I kind of snuck in the back door, didn't have to really learn how to play instruments, and I got to be, whatever, like a lead singer of a rock band is a huge surprise to me. And the fact that I spend, professionally, I spend most of my professional, where I make the most of the money is singing and more or less dancing and running around on stage. I was never a theater kid, and that still causes me a great deal of anxiety, but I've learned to really embrace that. But I can't believe that that's what I do for a living, and I don't know. I have brilliant friends who I take advantage of. What can I say?
Look, I absolutely love that. That is how we've all been lucky enough to be blessed with the music of yourself and the National and Matt Berninger, and kind of glad with how it's ended up like that. Matt, I am aware that there's a lot of excitement around these shows, so we'll make sure that we put all the details in today's podcast show notes for people to buy tickets, buy the record. It is called Get Sung for those who are not across it, and it is a beautiful record, so we'll make sure those links are in there as well. But thank you very much for coming onto the podcast and having a chat with us.
Thanks, Simon. Yeah, appreciate it. Can't wait to get there.